Hello everyone and welcome to the 5th episode on Shadow of the Colossus. In this video I will propose my personal analysis to the game and I will explain what are the main structural patterns of the game. Shadow engagement with the EBT is marked by two main features: how is it played and what does it tell us. In other words, gameplay and narrative. To analyze that, I first focus on the experience it proposes as the story is extracted from that playing. For a matter of clarity and what is possible to do while analyzing a game that can take days to finish, I focus on the separate patterns it presents. One of exploration, the lonely rides around the ancient lands, and the combat, or the fighting of the Colossi. Once we understand this structure, what is it and what it does, we can then discuss the game as a whole, the combination of its narrative and mechanics. So let's just jump into it. The first part of every encounter in Shadow is the exploration of the ancient lands to find our next enemy. Finding it is part of the puzzle of Shadow, as it requires us to understand how to use our sword to navigate the map, as well as the interactions of Wander, our avatar, with the space. We are sometimes forced to leave our horse aggro behind and climb walls, jump through gaps, and all that jazz to find the next enemy. In doing so, we are aided by the information the game gives us through the HUD, head-up display, in the bottom left corner of the screen. That is the only information Shadow communicates to the player. This minimalist approach is what Ueda Fumito, the director of the game, calls subtractive design, and it's aimed to maintain a mimetic relation between game and its representation of reality. Ueda wanted to keep this artificial and textual information to the minimum, to focus the player on the straightforward mission it has before him or her. This exploration part is not only a prelude, an anticipation of the combat, but also it is also an integral part of what our quest makes us feel, experience, think, and question. The world is extremely empty, although we are free to go wherever we want within the ancient lands. That increases our feeling of loneliness, as there is nothing for us to do except from riding and finding the next Colossus. There are no side quests in Shadow, no other NPCs, non-playable characters, to talk to us. There's no one there. This connects mechanics and narrative. The lack of inhabitants of the ancient lands increases the feeling of isolation. It also fosters the hurry of Wander to kill the Colossi to revive his lover. A feeling stressed by the recurrent visits to the altar where Mono, our loved one, lays down. Every time we successfully finish a Colossus, we restart in front of Mono, being constantly reminded of her centrality, of our only mission. Thus, it is interesting that in a world where the player can travel to anywhere in a map, without restrictions, the quest is always present, marked by the enormous shrine at the center of our world, a world that represents our own self, obsessed, consumed, and haunted by our only reason to live, to kill death. That is what the second phase of Shadow is about, the battles between Wander and the Colossi. These are the central climatic encounters, necessary for the success of the quest. Their main characteristic is their fierce violence. Every time we succeed at the previous exploration phase, we meet with one of these enormous creatures, majestic and dangerous. We are, in contrast, small and ill-equipped, but for our sword, bow, horse, and cannon. But as aggressive as the Colossi are, they are always reactive to our actions. Furthermore, if we abandon the combat and leave their home, they don't pursue us. They remain where they dwell. This means that all the responsibility of the violence falls into us. We are the aggressors, the destroyers of worlds and beings who, otherwise, will live in peace in these lands. By negating death, we are spreading it. We are the only responsible ones for the destruction of life. But to achieve our victory, we need to sink our sword into the Colossic weak spots that are situated around their bodies. That forces us to get close to them, to clean their bodies and to look at their faces, stare at their eyes as they try to get rid of us. We, cold-blooded killers, have to remain calm as they shake, jump and fight for their life. It is a brutal quest. Any heroism or epicity vanishes. Then, by looking at their bright eyes, we acknowledge the only clear truth about the Colossus. They suffer. And as Jeremy Bentham once said, it does not matter if they think, it doesn't matter if they reason, the only thing that matters about a being is if they suffer. Then, once we overcome our forced resistance, we see it collapse. It lies dead, as black tendrils coming from his lifeless body reach us and leave us unconscious. There is no celebratory music, no winning message or reward for our deed. The player, on the contrary, is chased relentless by the spirit of his victim. No matter how much you run or what you attempt, the tendrils get you, and they become one with you. There is a moment of reflection right there, a moment of bewilderment and insecurity about the meaning and consequences of our actions. Every time we succeed, we get closer to the end of our quest. We know, eventually, it will be too late to stop. In the beginning, our quest seemed desperate, but heroic. We were victims, rebels against an unjust world. Now we are murderers, selfish killers that care only about themselves. Eventually, spoiler alert, the last battle we fight turns us into a Colossus, as Dormin, which is the spiritual force that guided us, awakens. We try to fight the soldiers that are sent to stop us, and finally, we disappear, turn into a shadow, swallowed by a pool of light. The ABT in Shadow is a story of violence, isolation, obsession, and individualism. We do not care if we destroy the world, because what has the world done for us anyway? These are the tensions that marked Shadow, and that relate to its context, a relation that I will study in the following video. That is all from me now. Thank you for listening, and see you soon. Astro Cats. Something for your cat.